Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. The skies above the Black Sea have erupted, not in peaceful sunrise hues, but in fire and thunder. Tonight, two powerful nations collide in a moment that will reshape the balance of power. Imagine colossal oil tanks, worth an estimated $10 billion, engulfed in flames, their black smoke rising into the clouds like a grim signal of war. For the first time, the U.S. Navy and Ukrainian forces moved in unison, striking at the heart of Russia's energy lifeline, and the consequences are already rippling across the region. What you are about to hear is not just another news story. It's a snapshot of strategic gambits. Raw human tension lives in the balance, and the chilling realization that war comes not just with bombs, but with decisions, fear, and the heavy weight of leadership. In Kyiv, early this morning, the mood was tense and expectant. A Ukrainian intelligence briefing illuminated what those massive fuel reserves meant to Russia's war machine: mobility, logistics, power. Without them, a blitz across the southern front could falter. In a hushed command room, generals exchanged grim looks, fingers hovering over maps and screens. The decision was taken. Coordinate with the U.S. Navy, launch a precise strike on the depot located just offshore. The mission would require stealth, speed, and absolute coordination. Jets roared, missiles streaked, and in the blackened horizon, the first explosion, a cascade of fire on the waters of the Black Sea, transformed expectation into reality. Onboard aircraft carriers and command ships, American officers monitored the mission with cold efficiency. The crew flowed like a machine: radar sweeps, target confirmation, weapons deployment. At the same time, back in Moscow, a worried leader paced his office, blinds drawn, his face in the glow of flickering monitors. He saw what was happening before the public did. For him, this was not a civilian collateral event. It was a direct hit to his strategic arsenal, a message wrapped in flame and thunder. The world watched as his expression hardened: shock, anger, disbelief. He realized the oil depot explosion would ripple far beyond a single installation. It would send shockwaves through his military planning, his economy, his reputation. As smoke still rose from the Black Sea in streaks of orange and gray, Ukrainian troops near the southern front felt an unfamiliar surge of adrenaline. They peered through night vision goggles, heard distant thunder and the hum of their own hearts. For them, it was more than a military mission. It was survival, resistance, hope. They gathered around radios, waiting for confirmation. Target destroyed. When the word came, a shouted cheer cut through the cold night. But cheering didn't erase the fear. Because war in the modern world carries consequences. The strike would trigger counter-moves, retaliation, civilian impact. The silence after the blast was heavy, like a moment of calm before the next storm. In Washington's briefings, senior officials described the operation as a strategic necessity. They emphasized the values at stake: freedom, sovereignty, international law. But beneath the polished phrasing lay harsher truths. Alliances weighed heavily, the risk of escalation loomed, the possibility of miscalculation was real. On deck of a U.S. destroyer, sailors carried on with purposeful calm. Their eyes betrayed the same doubts. They knew the mission's success mattered, yet the stakes were larger. What if Russia responds by pushing more ships into the region, launching missiles, or engaging in cyber war? Every move counted. Meanwhile, in Kyiv's skyline, early morning light revealed charred vapors rising in the distance. The capital city held its breath, and its mobilization continued. Leaders met in secure underground rooms, blinking lights and screens all around them, maps of the Black Sea jolting with red icons. One Ukrainian general, with silver hair, a steely look, addressed his officers. "This is not just about destroying tanks. It is about sending a signal. We will not bow. We will fight." And they nodded. Outside the window, the skyline stood quiet, as if time paused for a brief moment, trembling. Back across the sea, in Russia's Naval Command Center, younger officers stared at a big screen. The image showed the blast, the plume of fire rising from their asset. They whispered among themselves, "What do we do now?" In that moment, routine training gave way to crisis management. Some pressed emergency buttons. Others phoned ministers. The mood changed. The calm of dominance shifted to urgency. For the first time in a long while, Russia's southern energy security looked vulnerable. That realization alone rattled nerves. On the ground in southern Ukraine, villagers awoke to the glow of distant fire. They couldn't see the oil tanks, but they smelled the burnt air, heard the distant booms, and knew something had changed. Daily routines were replaced by uncertainty. Mothers clutched their children. Men gathered at buses and fronts. The atmosphere was now tri-layered: fear, hope, determination. Because a strike doesn't just destroy a target, it cracks the narrative. Ukraine and its allies now hold the initiative. Russia may be forced to respond. The question is how. In the post-attack hours, diplomats scrambled. In Berlin, Paris, London capitals, foreign ministry phones rang. News channels blared imagery of burning oil on the sea, fighter jets slicing the horizon, flags fluttering in windy command decks. The message from Ukraine and the U.S., we will deny you your supply lines. The message from Russia, stay tuned. The world held its breath. Analysts weighed the repercussions: global oil prices, shipping lanes, Black Sea security, NATO posture. Headlines multiplied. But inside the war zones, the critical conversations were quieter, more personal. Soldiers wrote messages home. A lieutenant in a command post whispered, "If this gives Ukraine even a day's advantage, then it's worth it." Flyover video from drones showed the burned depot, the charred remains of storage tanks, blackened water shimmering in the orange glow. Drone VR loops revealed that the sea itself had become a battlefield zone, no longer just a body of water, but a strategic frontier. Meanwhile, jets stationed on carrier decks waited, launch crews ready, munitions locked in. It was an operation of precision, but also of risk. If a missile misses, if civilian casualties mount, if the target turns out to house more than tanks, then the strategic advantage could fade into political liability. Then, as dusk approached, something unexpected. A Russian submarine slipped into hidden waters, a gesture of menace. A Ukrainian frigate responded. The Black Sea erupted not in mutual cooperation, but in tense standoffs. The oil depot strike was just move one. For the soldiers at sea, the commanders in bunkers, the civilians under sirens, the game had changed. No one fully believed the worst yet, but everyone feared it. Leadership imagery mattered. In Kiev, a prime minister appeared on a modest stage flanked by generals. He spoke of resilience and shared sacrifice. In Moscow, the national leader summoned his security council in a fortified room, lights low, portraits of past generals looming behind. He tapped a laser pointer at the projected map of the Black Sea, and his voice, for the first time in public imagery, carried a certain strain. He was not an untouchable figure today. He was worried. The fire above Russian tanks, above the sea, told a story of vulnerability. And in warfare, vulnerability is a message. The global audience took notice. Markets jittered. Shipping companies rerouted. Analysts on cable networks debated. Could this mark a turning point in the war? Could Ukraine's forces, backed by American naval power, begin to strike at the heart of Russia's economy? Or would Russia retaliate with a ferocity that sends the region spiraling? For the people watching, the line between home and front line felt thinner. Because when the Black Sea burns, tomorrow's gas bills, grain shipments, European stability, all come under spotlight. Among those in the field, personal stories emerged. A U.S. Navy sailor wrote a brief note. "We trained for this. We knew what we were doing, but seeing the actual fire on water, seeing it with your own eyes, it changes you." A Ukrainian soldier, voice slightly shaky in a cell phone clip, said, "I never thought I'd be part of something that felt so big. One strike, but it's echoes. Everywhere." Their hearts beat with the same truth. War is not abstract. It is searing and alive. As night descended over the Black Sea, a silence fell across one front. But under the surface, the chessboard shifted. Russia's navy recalibrated. Ukraine's defenses strengthened. The U.S. maintained watch. And for the first time, the oil depot, one of Russia's crown pieces, had been hit. The implications would unfold not in hours, but in weeks. Power grids, supply chains, morale, back-channel diplomacy, all affected. The next move might come from satellites, from drones, from subsea mines. The next could come from the Kremlin's miscalculation. And we watched. Despite the tension, amidst the smoke and embers, there was still hope. Hope that this could be a turning moment for truth, for sovereignty, for deterrence. Ukraine asserted it has allies. The U.S. asserted it will act. Russia learned it can be targeted. The world learned the front lines of war run deeper than trenches mapped in yesterday's textbooks. They run through sea lanes, oil reserves, command rooms, and unspoken fears. I want you to imagine again, fighter jets ripping through clouds, the roar of takeoff, the moment a missile leaves the launcher at sea, the plume of flame consuming storage tanks, thick smoke rising against the twilight of the Black Sea. A Ukrainian soldier looking at his watch and thinking, we changed momentum today. A Russian admiral in his headquarters staring at a map and thinking, what did we just lose? And perhaps a moment of quiet in Kyiv, where civilians whispered to each other, tonight, the war felt closer. War is measured not only in territories seized, but in moments like this, where a strike becomes signal, where fire becomes message, where strategy becomes story. Thank you for staying with me throughout this unfolding chapter of conflict. We will continue to track every development, analyze the tactics, and keep our eyes on the human cost. The skies above the Black Sea may have erupted tonight, but so did our awareness of what's at stake. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more updates. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more breaking updates.